Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation on traditional leaders, their role, and what it means to be a traditional leader in modern society, and also the challenge that government has in terms of laws, constitutions, keeping them standardized across the nation. But we've got different societies with different traditions, and how do you merge the two in a modern society? Well, we've just been joined on the panel by Kgosi Mkhize, who's from an area just outside Escort in KwaZulu-Natal. And he's young and very modern, and we just want to say hello to you, and also just get your thoughts as a young leader about being in a modern society, being young in a modern society, but you have a history of old traditional values. How do you manage to bridge that?
Thank you very much, Peter, and to the viewers at home, Deputy Minister Kgosi. I think there's always this perception that seeing that I am younger than Kgosi, then I must always speak on behalf of the youth. I'm not even a youth member anymore. I passed that stage 3 years ago, but in any case. I think that the issue of youth and obviously the unemployment element of it, you come into a fraternity, and I'll call it that basically has got its ways of working. But as Kgosi Phillia actually said, the culture it moves, it's never static. And that's the one thing that you always see. Obviously, the challenges that you actually get to see, and I think the Deputy Minister summed up something that has become a big passion of mine. Besides the educational element of everything that's under traditional or royal communities, the issue of language and how important African languages need to be, but also the fact that the imperialistic nature of English as a language basically excluded people who are indigenous from South Africa. So somehow the development element of society generally became in a way that we were not able to participate. Colonialism as well, people came in, they found a business model that was working for us as Africans, but all of a sudden it had to be changed. You look in KZN, 34% of the land is under communal ownership, so under Kgosi. But for whatever reason, the financiers and the banks feel that they cannot fund communal land because there are no title deeds. So that's an issue that we need to find a way to be able to change it. And at the end of the day, the heart of it is language, because language carries heritage, carries culture, carries tradition. And I think as a younger, let me not say young, as a younger than my colleagues here, it's one thing that I'm hoping, and I've been getting from a lot of them, particularly Kgosi that I'm sitting with on the table, just to be able to understand how to go about going forward in terms of economic development.
Do you find that, I mean, you know, back in the day, you could run things whichever way you wanted. Are you finding that you're able to introduce new ideas and do things differently without necessarily having your hands tied by people like the Deputy Minister?
Kgosi, I think there's always this perception, Peter, that Kgosi are dictators. And there's a word that I always hear when they translate it, they say that our people, we are our subjects. But when you talk in isiZulu, you lead your people. There are no subjects in the way that when you translate it. So everything that we do, it's not that you come there and you tell people that this is what I'm going to do. It's always through consensus. Right. Because if people don't buy into your idea, nothing's going to happen, or people will drag their feet. So I'm trying to possibly try and find a way to be able to take away that perception that Kgosi just sit there and tell people what to do and find them goats and cattle and things like that. It's nothing like that.
Okay, all right. Let's go to the floor where we'll find on table number 10, Mayor Molebeng Mbedzi.
Good morning to the viewers at home. Good morning to everybody in here. My name is Molebeng Mbedzi, and I come from Mamelodi. My question today is directed to the whole panel. Tradition versus modernization, and innovation. Is it socially valuable to choose innovation, technology, or modernization over tradition? What advice would you give to the youth today, to the society today, especially to husbands who are stuck in the past? Is it socially valuable to choose those over tradition? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to table number 3, where we'll find Kgosi Zibi. Professor.
He's a professor.
Yes.
My question is, rural areas under the jurisdiction of traditional leaders are not funded by government for development purposes, whereas municipalities are funded. Time and again, we are told we've got to work together with our councillors and all such things, but traditional leaders have been reduced to beggars, because where a need arises, you have to beg someone or you have to go and make a request. Whereas if you budget for something, at least you know that the funds that come in will be applied for that purpose. Now, the state of development or underdevelopment in rural areas is evidence that there is a need that the traditional leaders should also be funded. Traditional leaders have experience, or the necessary experience, where schools have been built, clinics, and a number of projects. So that's the drive that we have. Why are we not funded for development purposes? Thank you.
Wonderful. And then table number 6, we'll find Chief Kgosi, table number 6.
I'm Chief Kgosi Vazingingi, the chairperson of Gauteng East Traditional Council and the PRO of Gauteng Traditional Council. There has been a lot said around Act 41 of 2003, that is Traditional Leadership and Governance Act. But now the question is the implementation. How speedily is that act going to be implemented, so that we don't have the theory that the traditional leaders are recognized and there's no implementation on the ground? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so if you could all answer separate questions. Deputy Minister, I think you'll answer about the Act and the funding question. But maybe I could ask you to address the innovation versus tradition and the advice to husbands that are stuck in the past.
We'll take it.
Okay, do you want to take it? Yeah? Hosi?
Thank you, Peter. I think the funding part of it, it's quite true that traditional leaders are not funded, but that does not mean that we cannot try and introduce development in our areas. Despite the fact that government is not giving us funding, we can go out and have partnership with the private sector. In my community, I've got very good partnership with private sector targeted to the youth in particular, because the youth is the foundation of our community, of our nation. And then the youth, we have got that particular program which is called Fit for Life and Fit for Work, because the main challenge with our youth is unemployment. Even when they pass and they have their degrees, but they are unemployed. So I think to marry the two is to be able to try and develop our communities in the best way that we can, although it is not easy. Thank you.
Act 41, when is it going to cease being a theory and come into practice? Act 41 of 2003.
Well, the challenge with the legislation was it was coined but not costed. And I think with the new amendment act that we are now introducing in order to recognize the Khoisan communities, we will then be able to do the costing of the implementation of the Act itself, and I think it will then begin to change the picture in terms of supporting the structures of traditional leaders. And when it comes to the development and why there's no development fund, that is one of the topics, as the minister was alluding, in the big Indaba, around developing a new model of assisting traditional leaders to be developers in their own areas. And I think in sharing in the preparation we had said, what is this royal levies that have been paid by mines that are operating in South Africa? And most of the mines are now in the traditional land. What are the royalties that are paid by agriculture and forestry and fishery? And we need them to look with the treasury, engage in that structure and say, can the levies now be ring-fenced probably and then begin to, because they call them royal levies. I don't know why they name royal levies. And then so that we could then begin to say, is it not the package? But I know that in the past, traditional leaders used to be given those particular resources. But in 1994, when we were building a new society, some elements disappeared within the cracks, but we are now engaging with the children to say, how do we affirm and assert the structure going forward? On the issue of the husband, I think society is evolving. Husbands change your ways of doing things. We are now equal society. Tradition must never be used to suppress women. And that is why we are going to be identifying during the summit all those harmful practices that continuously are gender insensitive and have been oppressive or discriminative in nature, so that we could then begin to harmonize or regulate them so that they no longer exist and we continue to embrace culture as it adopts.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll hear from Cecil Lefleur, Duduzi Moyo, and Dr. Love. Stay with us.